Hi folks, this is Double Krown, and you might have noticed I haven't done any videos for some time. That's because I was having problems with my computer. So I've found a temporary solution, and hopefully I'll find a permanent fix soon. But in the meanwhile, I'm not going to be doing any gaming videos until it's kind of sorted. So I'm going to do a different video this time. And this time I'm going to do a video about, well, it's about the moon matrix, and that is a theory created by David Icke, I believe, this moon matrix theory. So we're going to talk about that. Now, David Icke was a presenter, a sports presenter, and a very good sports presenter way back when. He kind of quit his day job in a way. Well, he had an interview with Terry Wogan, and things all changed for him at that stage. Um, he he had a kind of eureka moment. Some people would say he had a nervous breakdown, but anyway, after his interview with Terry Wogan, his life kind of changed. He was ridiculed, and people thought he was a bit of a nutter. But anyway, his ideas and some of the things that he was thinking at the time, it appears as though some of his ideas are correct, or there's quite a bit of truth to them. So, and he talks about this moon matrix here, which is one of his wilder ideas, if you like. So I'm just going to talk about that. I mean, I've done my own research into this, and the moon, etc. So let's compare and contrast his ideas, and see if there's any kind of truth to what he's saying. I mean, I love David Icke, and I think he's got a lot of interesting things to say. And this moon matrix thing, there's definitely a little bit of truth in what he's saying. Whether he's got the whole picture, I've no idea. But basically, the idea is that the moon, our moon here, you can see it here, and you can see all the other moons in our solar system. For example, you've got Ganymede, Titan, Callisto, Io, Europa, Triton, and you've got a couple of planets in there as well, Pluto and Mercury. But our moon here, as you can see, it's quite a large moon, and it fits there nicely between Io and Europa at about 3,000 kilometers, which is over 2,000 miles. I presume that's the diameter or something. And you can see it's a pretty big moon, but almost all of these moons and the planets, all of the moons anyway, belong to gas giants. So our moon is comparable to the moon of a gas giant, which is very, very odd. The moon is just too big for our planet, which means that, there's something very odd about our moon. It's not what you think it is. It seems to be some sort of artificial moon, artificial construct. Perhaps it's a satellite, perhaps it's a spaceship, but there's lots of theories going around about this, and so we're going to just take a look at what it is. If I can scroll down here, I might be able to show you a little bit more detail here. Now, there are some strange facts about the moon that you might be aware of, or you might be familiar with. The moon, like I said, is about 2,000 miles across, and the Apollo missions revealed that there is something very odd about it, and that when they landed and when they took off, I think it was when they took off actually, when they left the moon, the thrust or whatever, something, meant that the moon started ringing like a bell. It started vibrating, and the Americans have done further tests on that, and they crashed a spacecraft they slammed it into the moon, and it started ringing, and it was ringing for about a half an hour, whatever it was. It was ringing like a bell because they think it might be hollow on the inside. So it's like a hollowed out planetoid or some kind of spacecraft with something inside it. Maybe the aliens are hiding on the inside of it. But it's a very odd feature anyway. The other peculiarities and oddities of the moon are that it is made, about 18% of it is made out of titanium. Now, titanium is a very interesting metal, and titanium is typically used for kind of accessories and things like that. So, for example, I've got a watch. I'm wearing a watch at the moment, which happens to have a titanium buckle to it, and it has a titanium back to it. So titanium is a very versatile metal. It doesn't rust. It's very strong, so it's very lightweight as well. Perfect for moving around, as it were. And I mean, I've had glasses which are made of titanium. Titanium is often used for making accessories. It's also used for making spacecraft because of its qualities. So it's very odd that the moon is about 18% titanium, because the Earth is completely different in its constitution. So the moon and Earth are very, very different in that respect. The moon is also made up of silicates and other kind of stuff. So if you're gonna build a moon, and if you're gonna build a hollow moon with a tough outer exterior, titanium would be a great metal to make it out of. It would be the perfect construct, in fact. So that you're talking about a designer moon here. It's not an ordinary moon. This is kind of like your Louis Vuitton of moons. This is your Coco Chanel of moons. You can think of Versace. You can think of Cartier, diamond encrusted. That's what we're talking about here. This moon has semi-precious metals on it, and it is very, very odd, very, very peculiar. It's a designer accessory, in effect. The other peculiarities of the moon are that it has a very, very low mass. It's only 1% mass, or 1 or 2%, I think, of the Earth. And I mean, if you look at the sizes there, you'd think it was a bit more than 1%, or 2% even. But of course, if it's hollowed out, basically means the moon is basically nothing. There's just nothing there. Is it a spacecraft? Is it a hollowed out planetoid? What's on the inside? It's all very, very odd. And of course, the moon it blocks out the sun entirely, and is just the right distance and just the right size to do that. Which again is a bit of a peculiarity, isn't it? And I suspect it's just not coincidence. This is actually a designer move, isn't it? This has been designed by somebody specifically for the Earth. The other oddities about this moon are that it is actually facing inwards. So one side of the moon faces into the Earth all times, just like a satellite. Just like a satellite would. So it might be spying on us. It might be gathering data. And of course the rear side is always facing outwards, so we don't really know what's on the rear side. Of course they have got orbiters and they've had a look, but there do appear to be some differences between the near side, particularly in terms of gravity. Most of the mass cons, or mass centers of gravity, are actually on the side that is facing the Earth, and that gravity of course affects the tides and things like that. So we don't know what's happening on the rear side as much, but this it definitely looks like it's a kind of like a designer moon. And if you look at all these planets here, you've got Earth, you've got Mars. Mars has absolutely tiny moons. You can barely see them on this chart here. You've got Jupiter, which has big moons, sort of comparable to Earth's. You've got Saturn. Even Saturn has tiny moons, apart from this big one, Titan here. You'd probably expect another big moon um, in Saturn's profile somewhere, so it would create a nice tapering effect. And it's possible that our moon has been transported, possibly from Saturn, possibly from Jupiter, from somewhere else in the solar system anyway, and it's been transported to the Earth. Now, how can a moon be transported to the Earth? You'd need some kind of vehicle, maybe some sort of air tug, some kind of a tugboat to drag it across, across the solar system like that. And of course, if you wanted to create a moon, then if you look at these planets, you look at Uranus, you look at Neptune, you look at Saturn, you look at Jupiter, the gas giants. This is the perfect place to create a designer moon. So you could then, use one of these planets to basically create a moon to a certain specification, to certain requirements. It's a bit like going to Argos. If you want something specific, you go to Argos and you order it. Now you can't order a moon at Argos. You're going to have to go to Saturn. Saturn is the equivalent of Argos. Saturn or Jupiter is the equivalent of Argos for the solar system. So you can create a designer moon to a certain specification using one of the gas giants. So if you want to create a moon with a smiley face, with spectacles on it, perhaps you want to put a heart shape on your moon or your planet, you would use one of the gas giants and then transport it using some kind of tugboat. Sounds ludicrous. I know. But is that all part of this moon matrix? What David Icke is suggesting is that possibly the control base, if you like, is Saturn, and the moon is a kind of satellite, and it's receiving signals and transmitting signals back to Saturn, and Saturn is the control base, and Saturn is sending out these radio signals. And you might notice there is a pentagon, not a pentagon, a hexagon. A hexagon on the top of Saturn, one of its poles. I don't know if it's a north. I think it's a north pole. But there is a hexagon, a storm raging on Saturn, and it's permanently a hexagon shape, and it is emitting vast amounts of radio signals. And those radio signals, there are also electromagnetic fields in the rings of Saturn, and they seem to correlate quite nicely with this raging storm that is happening on Saturn. So it's all very, very odd. Nobody quite knows what's going on here. But there's definitely something strange going on. If we look down here, basically it gives you some ideas of how a moon can be created. One method is the accretion process. Now, accretion means that clumps of matter clump together and they can form a moon, but of course it wouldn't be hollow in that instance. So it's not thought that accretion would be the method, but also the composition of the Earth and the Moon would be quite similar, but that's not the case. So accretion is not the method that the Moon was created. You've got other methods like impact. If bodies collide and they then aggregate together again, that's yet another method of of creating moons and planets. But it's interesting that, for example, Pluto is actually the size of a moon, is actually smaller than our moon, and maybe Pluto was actually created by one of the gas giants. And you'll notice there's a heart shape on Moon. So it's kind of, I mean, don't tell me that heart shape is just there by pure coincidence. That has been designed, hasn't it? It's been stamped with a heart. It is a designer planet. So the solar system is not what you think it is. Thanks for watching. And if you've got any ideas or any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.